And we're back with lesson number 3, auditioning part 2, TV and film. So, how do you get an audition for a TV show or a movie? Again, at this point, hopefully you have a really amazing agent working on your behalf and they're submitting you with your fabulous headshots. Should you want to submit yourself, there are a number of options throughout the country that you can use. I'm going to give you some examples based on LA. This is the market that I live in. We have LA Casting, and this is a must. Every actor should have their own account on LA Casting. This allows you to put up your headshots, you can put up a reel, we'll talk about a reel later, and any information about yourself. This is also a way that your agents can go ahead and submit you for things there as well. But if for some chance you want to get on there and look at what commercials are being offered that are within your type, you can do that. It's a really great resource because it also gives you different sections to put information about yourself that you can expand upon that may not fit on your resume. This is a place where it has your height, your age, your weight, your type. They'll ask, are you ambiguously ethnic? What's your racial background? So that the actual site will sometimes self-send you auditions that you might be right for that your agent may not see or send you out for. There's also breakdown services. Breakdown services is available in New York, LA, Chicago, Atlanta, I believe as well. Pretty much any of the major big cities. This is another service where actors will be asked to open their own account. There are also a number of auditions available on this service, which you can self-submit for. It works very similar to LA Casting. IMDb, I have never actually myself used IMDb for auditions, but I do know that they do post auditions there. It's definitely worth looking at, again, especially if you don't have an agent and you're looking for a way to start getting a little more work on your resume. For people who are interested in doing more theater type stuff, or if you happen to live in New York, Backstage is a wonderful resource. I think there's a similar sort of Backstage in Chicago because it's also a really well-known theater town. Now, when it comes to preparing for an audition, again, it's similar to commercials in that, let's say your agent is going to send you the breakdown and what the show is and your time and where you need to go. It's now your job to do a little work now that you have this. I take the time to sort of get to know what kind of work the director and the producers have done before. Obviously, if it's a new show that hasn't been on TV, I try to find whatever I can find about it so I understand the genre. If it is a show that has been on TV and I haven't watched it, I look it up. This is the great thing about Netflix and Hulu and just the internet in general. Often if you can't find the whole show, you can at least watch a clip. And this will help give you a sense of the pacing of the show and of the genre of the show so that you can make sure that you're matching what you prepare with what they might want to see. Just like with commercials, you want to dress appropriately for the character. And I'd say even more so for TV and film, you want to make sure that you're presenting kind of a whole character as much as you can. It's your job to convince them, especially if you're feeling like it's not something that you would normally do. Like sometimes you'll get roles that you'll go out for that you're like, I don't know that this is like me, and that's okay. That's where the challenge is. So make sure you have something that reflects the character. Now, be careful with showing up in costume. I'm not suggesting that you go out and get a full-on doctor's outfit. Though, I recently had an audition for one of these medical shows, and there were people in scrubs and people in lab coats. I did my best. I didn't have a pair of scrubs that were clean, so I did my best to sort of look like I was in scrubs. So there is a line there that is kind of safe to cross. As usual, it's good to have some staple pieces, and hopefully, any closet has a good pair of jeans, a good pair of slacks, some nice shirts, things that a lawyer might wear, a doctor might wear. You need to, again, think about the roles that you see yourself going out for, that you're hoping to go out for, so make sure those are all in your closet. And then beyond that, it's your job to be familiar with the material. I often ask if I really feel like I need the script, ask if I can get one. Some production companies, some shows are a little more open to offering whole scripts. Other shows are really secretive about the information they put out, so you may not get one. But if you do, read the script, because once again, you're going to get little nuggets of information. You're going to get, more ideas about your characters, things that you may not know just from reading that one scene, but that can really paint a bigger, brighter picture of who you're portraying. I know that it can be exhausting sometimes to sort of read multiple scripts if you have a lot of auditions, but even if you read up to your scene, it's worth taking the time and perusing the script. And I think most teachers will tell you that the audition, it's not it's a performance, but it's not the finished, polished performance. So there's, again, a fine line between being memorized and reading off the script. I like to, at the very least, have the first page memorized. You want to grab people. You want to engage them right away. So if you're spending the first part of your scene, excuse me as I bend down here, you're holding your script and you're looking down instead of like looking at the person you're reading with or engaging with the camera and the energy there, you've kind of lost it. So at the very least, memorize the first page. If you're really good at memorizing, memorize all of it, which is great. But also, in the memorizing process, you don't want to get so hung up on doing it a certain way. They may redirect you. They may want to see you do it in a whole different way. And sometimes if you're just so stuck on being memorized, so stuck on getting it this way, it's hard to sort of open up and let go. And this again is where improv, if you're taking your classes, improv is a really great class because it's going to prepare you for that moment when the casting director says, okay, I want to try that all over again, and this time think about this, this, and this. And this, and this is completely different than anything you'd even conceived of. Some little techniques that I use as I'm looking at the scene. If you're doing, let's say, a comedy, some of the first ideas you can pull from are right on the breakdown that are sent to you for your audition. The little description about your character is going to give you a lot of ideas about who they are. Make sure you read them and even highlight some of the big words that jump out. If it says that so-and-so is kind of lazy or so-and-so has a habit of dating the wrong kind of guy, you're getting little hints about who that person is. I like to write those little notes on the side of my sides just as a reminder so I can sort of keep looking up at them and remember, okay, who is this character? There are archetypes. If you watch sitcoms especially, there are very specific types of characters. So it's just really good to know what the different archetypes are. You can Google it. Again, if you're taking an acting class, you've probably covered it. But you can find a list, and there are 7 or 8 really standard ones that you will find, especially in sitcoms, and know them and understand them. And then when you go to look at your script, you can sort of decipher who your character is based on those archetypes. When it comes to, breaking down each line, and literally you're going to break down each line. This is the hard work that you're going to get into as an actor. Not only your lines, but also the line of the person in the scene with you. One of the techniques that I use pretty much for every script I get and every scene I have to break down, whether it's a comedy or a drama, is asking a question before each line. And you're going to do this not only for your character, but also for the other character in the scene. And the point of asking the question is to help motivate your response. And how you ask the question and what type of question is going to really dictate the tone and the energy that you're setting, not only for your response, but also for the question that the other character is going to ask in response to your response that's also going to dictate their response. There's a lot there, but let me give you an example. I'll keep it really simple. Let's say my line is, I'm going to the store to get some eggs. And the response from the other character is, oh, okay. Can you grab some beer? That seems pretty simple. But what's really going on there? What's the energy? What's that telling us about them? Now I'm going to ask a question before I say my line. And this time it's going to be kind of really simple. The question I would ask in my head would be maybe, what did I have to do today? Oh, I'm going to the store to pick up some eggs. His question could be, really? Oh, okay. Could you grab some beer? Now, in that particular example, it was really kind of easy. There was no real conflict, but it did give it a little more energy than just saying some lines. Now, what if we change up the questions altogether? My first question for my line might be, how can I get out of here so we don't have to talk about this right now? Oh, I'm going to go to the store to grab some eggs. To which his response would be, really? Right now? Okay, cool. Could you grab some beer? There again, it's a simple back and forth, but you've now changed the complete tone and feeling and intention of both of the characters. Obviously there's a little conflict there. Obviously there's something going on and one of them's trying to avoid it and the other one's not sure what the other one's trying to avoid it, but also trying to stay cool about it. So this is a way to sort of give a little air, a little interesting color to your scene. Just make sure that when you ask your question, that it fits the tone and intention of the show. You don't want to go ask a question that's going to have you responding in a sort of depressed or angry manner when you're meant to be excited and happy. Another technique that you really have to consider is the lists. Whether it's a drama or a comedy, again, you're going to sometimes have paragraphs of dialogue. And in those paragraphs, there may be lists. I have an audition actually today. A scene where I am a woman with a husband who's slowly deteriorating, and I'm relaying to the doctor just how much work it is for me and what I have to do for him, and I'm kind of at my wit's end. And there's a section where he says, you know, the doctor says to the character, I really feel for you, I really understand what's going on with you. And her response is, really? Do you understand what I'm going through? I wake up at 6 in the morning. I change his diaper. I shower him, feed him, dress him. That's a list. And in that list, I have to make each individual thing important. I have to give it each some meaning, and there needs to be some sort of build when you say it. Because otherwise it's like, really, do you know what I'm going through? You know, I have to diaper him, feed him, change him. There's nothing there. So you want to, again, you are creating a picture. You're telling a story. So in that story, when you get a list, you want to make sure that you're building to it. Now with comedy, you really want to focus on whether you're going to be building up to something funny or building down. So if I take that same script, for instance, just that same paragraph, and let's say that this is like one of those, a Scrubs episode, for instance, and the doctor's like, oh, you know, I really feel for you with your husband who's, you know, nearly falling apart here. I have two options. My one option is to go, do you? Do you really? I mean, I wake up at 6 a.m. I change his diaper. I bathe him, feed him, send him off to whatever he has to do, and then I start all over again. You know, you can get the funny by getting really sort of excited and really angry and upset, and that's your build there. Or you could start your build at the top. Oh, really? Do you really? It's really just a matter of which way you want to take your character and where it is that you think you're going. But once you have a plan, you'll be able to figure those out. Comedy often happens in threes, so look for those signs. You'll see the builds will come in 3. I think the other thing to really remember when you're dealing with comedy versus drama is that comedy is like straight, like if you were to look at a graph and you were to graph it, comedy would be very like straight lines with at right angles. So often you'd say something like, oh, really, that's funny. Not. The turn is really quick. You could also do it like, oh yeah, that's funny. Not. And I took that one up, but I still took a right angle. With drama, you're dealing more with sort of like ebbs and flows. It curves a little more, and that's always something to remember. Now, you've broken down your script. You have your questions before each line. You have your ideas. You have a sense of what's going on between you and the other character. You know where you were, where you started, where you currently are, and where you want to go. You have an idea of what your character's motivations are, what their needs and desires are for that scene. And even there in the script, maybe you've made little notes too as to how the different tactics they use to get what they want. Maybe in one moment you're using manipulation and you're being really sexy and sexual, and then maybe sometimes you switch that up and now you're using, like, the manipulation you're using isn't sex and sex appeal, it's more trying to elicit sympathy. Or maybe you're angry at a moment and you're trying to make the other person feel guilty. Look for those moments. Look for how you can utilize these different types of emotions and ideas and thoughts to get your character what it is they want in the scene. You have all this, and now you're going to go to your audition. And just like with your commercial audition, as we spoke in our previous lesson, you're going to show up on time, and on time means you're going to show up at least 5 to 10 minutes early. I'd aim for 10 minutes, again, because of parking. Parking, depending on where you live, can be really, really difficult. I also, especially for theatrical auditions, I like to show up early because I like to be in the space and sort of, take in the ambiance, take in the energy and what's like happening in the room, and sort of find my center within that particular energy. Every different space feels different. Every casting director has a different mood about them, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable in that space. So now it's time to sign in. It's just like a commercial audition. You sign in your name. They'll ask often your agency, sometimes your agency phone number. Beyond that, there isn't much else. And you sit down and you wait for your turn. Again, this is the time when it could be easy to get into chitter chatter with fellow actors. But really, unlike a commercial, there's a lot more focus needed to remember your lines, especially if you have like an 8-page scene. There's a lot going on there, and you're wanting to remember the beats and the moments and making sure that you know that you're going to hit them all. Sometimes I bring headphones, because headphones are a good way to let people know that you're sort of in your moment and taking your time, and every actor knows it. Or you can just say, hey, I'm just having a little quiet time before I go in, and people are usually respectful of that. When you get called in, be prepared to walk in that room with confidence. Casting directors, the people, choosing the actors and things, they can detect when you don't feel like you're good enough. They can tell when you're not, sure you know what you're doing. All of that stuff comes in with you in the room. So do your best to leave it outside. I sometimes even imagine, like I literally duplicate myself. I envision myself becoming a second version of me. And I sort of give that second version of me the responsibility of the burden of the worry and the fear and the anxiety and the I'm not good enough, I'm not tall, all that stuff, all that actor noise. I give it to her. I give it to Lanata number 2, and I ask Lanata number 2 to wait in the waiting room, or even better, go wait in the car. And then when I'm done with the audition, when I'm done being awesome Lanata in the room, you and I can commiserate over what went down and if things were bad for you and all that. But it kind of helps to sort of create this other self that takes on the hard stuff so that I can just do the good stuff. Walk in the room, most people won't shake your hand. Sometimes, I had William H. Macy stand up and shake my hand, so of course I got up and shook his hand. But be prepared to say hello and be pleasant. If the casting director always asks if you have questions. Hopefully you've taken the time prior to coming in to Google any words that don't make sense, to look up definitions of things. But if there's something that's really integral to the scene, pronouncing names or pronouncing anything that might be awkward is good to know. Ask the question. If you have a sense that there might be something going on about your character that you don't get to know in the scene, but you have, that sort of, it's foreshadowed, feel free to ask, oh, is she the killer? Is that really what's going on? That's my perception. They will most likely answer it for you, and that'll give you another piece of information that you can then use in your audition. Sometimes in the middle of your audition, you'll go up on a line, or you'll lose your place on the script. I always tell people not to panic. I have panicked. I've had moments where I literally were like, stop, I'm sorry, I need to start again. And it was fine. No one penalizes you. But I always want to reiterate and remind you that you're being filmed in front of a camera. If something goes wrong or if you lose your line, it's sometimes just a matter of stopping for a second, looking down, finding the line, regrouping, looking up, and starting from there. If the casting director feels that it was too much of a break, or that you were in a really good, had a really good rhythm and he or she wants to see it done as cleanly as possible, they'll start you again. If not, they'll do exactly what they would do on set, which is you'd look down, you start again. It's that simple. So don't freak out, don't panic. It's okay to make a mistake. This isn't a polished performance. Again, you're presenting them with your idea, a very clear idea of where you think this character and this scene is going. That's your job, is to give them something that goes, this person knows what they're doing. This person has some interesting ideas. Oh, this person came up with stuff that I hadn't even thought of before. Now, just like with commercials, we slate. We will tail slate most likely. This is another opportunity for you to sort of take the energy of the character you just read, take the energy of what you just did in the room in a positive way, even if you aren't happy with what you did, because sometimes you'll have an audition and it doesn't hit right, and that's okay. I once showed up almost an hour late for an audition. I mean, traffic was horrible. It wasn't because I hadn't left on time, but it was literally just horrible. And I got into the room, it was my turn to go, and I was so nervous, and I was talking 1,000 miles a minute, and the casting director, I think she had me start over at least 3 or 4 times. 3 or 4 times. And by the 4th time, I had settled down. I'd gotten, I thought, a decent portrayal out. But I left feeling demoralized, because I just thought, oh God, that was awful, whatever. Nope. I did one awesome take, and that one awesome take booked me the show. All of this to say, don't let a little flub or a mistake or some weird energy in the room show your weakness. Like, don't let them see you sweat, because at the end of the day, you give a good take, that's what they want to see. They want to see that you have the potential to do it. That was one of those moments that reminded me, wow, okay, I thought I did really horribly at that audition. And admittedly, I still have those moments. If you talk to my husband, he says you probably have those moments every audition. But you're gonna have those moments when you feel like it didn't go your way, and that's okay. But make sure you still leave that room knowing that you did the best you could in that moment. So that covers what happens at an audition that you go into at a casting office. But something that's really popular these days are self-tapes. Sometimes the casting office can't accommodate all the people they want to see. Maybe you're out of town and you get an audition, and yet you really want to make sure they see you. Or in the rare occasion, you don't yet have all the things in place to have an agent and everything, but you want to put yourself on tape and send it sort of through some resources like the breakdown services. This is where self-tape comes in handy. Now, self-tape is really great for a number of reasons. You are in the comfort of either your own home, or you are utilizing any number of offices that provide this as a service. Literally, there are places you can call where their job is to just have a reader for you, or you can bring someone you know to be your reader, and they put you on tape. They'll do everything from slating you to editing any little tidbits out that you may not want, and they'll upload it and send it to you, and then you can send it off to whoever you want. It's definitely worth having a couple of those in your back pocket if you can't have your own setup. But these days people just record, and I often record right on my iPhone. This allows you the comfort of doing 1,000,000 takes if you need to do 1,000,000 takes. You can do it whenever you want, as long as you get it done in time to send it off. I find that I tend to be obviously less nervous because you're now not performing in the same way. With that said, the nerves sometimes help raise the stakes and help make it important. So just remember that if you end up having a self-tape, it's good to have, the nice energy that you can kind of create in your own space, but keep the stakes up. Remember to keep the energy out. So when you're self-taping, sometimes quality is an issue. You want to do your best if you can. There are a number of, you can buy like little kits that allow you to put up a curtain and put up some lights just to make sure you're lit well. They're not expecting perfection, again, because you're doing this from home, but you want to pretty much mimic as much as you can the same sort of setup that you would if you were to go into the office. Make sure that if you have a reader, the reader's a good reader, give them some time with the script as well, talk about what you need to do and what you're hoping for from them, and then just give a really great performance like you would in a room. One thing to keep in mind is that just because you put a tape together on your own doesn't mean that it's not going to get watched. To be honest, some people just do a lot better on tape. without having to go in the room in front of people. I tend to do both, do well with both, but I do get booked a lot off of the tapes that I send. And even if the ones that I don't book, I tend to at least get on to other auditions. I might get a call back. I even was asked to test for a show off of a tape that I made in a hotel room where I had my dad was ill, and I was at the hotel next to the hospital, and my sister who knows nothing of this business helped put me on tape in the corner of the hotel. So again, the tape and then the fact that you've done it yourself, or that you've had to submit on your own, or your agent has to submit it for you, but they didn't really call you in, or they've called you and asked you to put it on tape because they can't call you into the office, isn't a hindrance to your ability to book it, because it still comes down to what you put on that tape. It comes down to your preparedness. You still have to do all the same preparation that you would if you were going into a room. You just have the benefit of now doing it on your own time. I've got another wonderful bonus for you guys today. I had the pleasure of sitting down with a casting director to talk to her about what she expects from actors when they come into her room. I am pleased to have here today casting director Phaedra Harris. How are you today?
I'm well.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stuff you've cast? Some things.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of things. Let's start there.
I've been busy. All the way from, I started off years and years and years ago. It's been like 38, 39 years. I worked on things like What's Love Got to Do with It, Cool Runnings, Life with Mikey, oh my gosh, I can't even think, Dark Justice. I mean, I have a 12-page resume, and it's hard for me to remember, and I feel like I'm getting older, so it's like...
You don't want to date yourself?
Yeah. Kings of the Evening. I started off doing a lot of action, and then I went, and I love doing action because I love to see things blow up, and and it's always for guys because they make those movies for guys, and then I started doing a lot of independence, and that's where I felt my heart was, because you get to get really good actors, and then you don't necessarily have to have all stars. When I was doing studio films, you had to have tons of stars in there so you could make their money back.
What are you looking for in actors specifically? Not for like a specific. Obviously, you've talked about like finding the right actor for the right role and those things sort of coalescing and coming together. But what sort of characteristics in general about actors are you looking for when they walk in a room? Are there things that you can sort of pick up already that this person walks in the room and they're not?
I know instantly when you walk in the room whether you're in the mix or you're in the running or not. But that's a question that's asked of me all the time. Every time I talk about acting and my job, they ask, what are you looking for? And the real answer is, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you to step up to the plate and be that person and live that role. But most actors that come in, they try to get into my head.
Figure out what you want.
And then try to be that.
Right.
Instead of just being you. The reason that you booked Kings of the Evening was because you were her, and you understood her, and you found what connected with you in that role. And it was brilliant just to see it, the cadence of the speech, all of that stuff is important. The script is a blueprint of what the director and writer and producers are looking for, but how does that come through you? How do you interpret that and make it your own, and then bring it to life and make it live, because it's a living, breathing thing.
Talk to me a little bit about actor habits, things that actors do that are just categorically bad habits that you see across the board, and then maybe follow up with some of the good things that an actor does when they walk in a room.
Bad habits. Oh my goodness. One of my biggest pet peeves is not being prepared. I think that actors think this is just one more audition, and it disturbs me to think that American actors would take this so lightly, because this literally can change your life. One audition can change your whole life. So unprepared actors really, really trouble me. Actors who come in and give away their power, who are insincere, not genuine, not authentic. This is my job. You don't need to kiss up to me. Just come in and be good. Just know your lines and do the work. I'm happy with that. Just book the room. Right. Make a fan of that casting director, of that director, and they'll remember you and bring you back. I get directors all the time. Remember that guy that we auditioned? Remember that girl? And I'm like, yeah. So don't give me your power. Don't expect me to give you all the answers also. Come in there and do, when an actor asks me and I say, I'm gonna have you slate, and then we'll go right into this thing, feel free to stand, sit, whatever you're comfortable doing. And they're like, what's a slate? Really? Really, I'm teaching you at the job interview?
Right. Yeah.
No, you learn that. Go spend some time with other actors who are actually doing this. One of my other pet peeves, and this sounds really bad, and I know people don't think this happens, I get women coming in without their clothes on, or men coming in and flirting outrageously. And there is a casting couch, but I'm not on it. I don't want you on mine.
Right.
And I'm not interested. I mean, I literally had a girl do the Sharon Stone to me, and I was like, that is not appropriate. Close your legs.
So, are there some specific good habits? Obviously, the opposite of not snacking, all those. But are there any other sort of key things, energy, some sort of thing that you could sort of?
I like when an actor comes in with confidence. Everybody says what that it thing is. It's just confidence. If you've worked on that role and you come in there knowing that you've done all the work, you're ready. So you come in with this air of just possibility, not cockiness, but you're ready.
Could you speak a little bit on, let's say it's down to the decision making, and you're one of the actors that's in the mix, but you don't get the part. Like, what goes into that? Because I think sometimes as actors we think, I must have just really sucked if I didn't get it.
That's not true.
And you kind of touched on it, but
9 times out of 10, if you get a call back, you're in the running. They think that there's something there, so you're in the mix. It could be as general or as crazy as the director's best friend decides that they're going to do it. It could be the studio or the network has decided that we have to use this influencer
name person,
for whatever reason. Only thing an actor can do, and I say this all the time, come in there and do your best, and then walk out and leave it on the floor, literally.
Good stuff. What would you say, just in general, for an actor, whether they're starting out or they've kind of started out a little bit, just some good advice, some good steps to take to break in to acting?
Always be studying somewhere, and if there's no places around you, I was asked to come to Missouri to do some classes there because there's not a lot of people out there teaching. You can study by yourself. You can go online to IMDb, the screenwriters one, and read scripts out loud and try to break them down. Try to understand what the writer's intent is, and study. Go do theater. And if there's no theater, if there's no schools, how about doing stand-up? How about taking a chance and standing up and doing a set? And I'm not saying that I'm a theatrical thespian, I'm an actor. Okay, well, still, why not do some stand-up to work out? And network as much as you can. Even if you're in a small town, find out who's in the theater groups and go be a PA in the theater until you can work your way up into getting a role. Do something to keep breathing and living and love what you do.
Thank you so much for all this wonderful
This was fun. I hate being on camera. This was fun.
It was great having you here.
I guess because we're friends and I know you and I didn't feel like I was really talking about it, and then I kept looking over at the camera like, oh God,
It's because we love what we do.
Yeah, you have to love what you do if you're going to do this.
Yes, you do. See you back here for lesson number 4. You booked the part.